You've seen the announcements. Microsoft, $25 billion. Amazon, $20 billion. Google, another $20 billion. $65 billion in 3 years poured into Australian data centres. Every press release tells you the same story. Jobs, skills, sovereignty, investment in the future. Here's a number you haven't seen in any of those press releases. 50. That's the number of permanent jobs a $1 billion data centre creates. Now, I'm not making that up. We'll get to where it comes from. You're watching RegularsAI, AI content in Australian context. Every week, I take one AI story that's breaking and translate what it actually means for the people doing the work in this country. No hype, no doom, just signal. Let's get into it. Last month, the City of Ryde Council in Sydney made a submission to the New South Wales Parliamentary Inquiry into data centres. Buried in that submission is a project called Julius Avenue. It's a proposed data centre at Macquarie Park. The developer's environmental impact statement, the one they are legally required to file, says the project will create 3,424 construction jobs. Sounds great. Sparkies, concreters, project managers, riggers, traffic controllers, real work, real wages. 3,000 of them. Then a few pages later, the same document tells you how many permanent jobs the finished building will support. 50. Of those 50, most are not jobs they're imagining. They're not AI researchers, they're not machine learning engineers, they're security guards, facility managers, aircon techs, people who patch servers when the lights go red. The engineering jobs, the ones that pay $300,000 a year and build the actual product, those people are in Seattle, in Silicon Valley, maybe even Singapore. They are not on the floor of an Australian data centre. And a data centre being built in Australia does not bring them here. This isn't unique to Julius Avenue. It's a structural reality of the industry. A $1 billion facility that consumes the power of 50,000 homes will employ, at best, a few dozen people forever. Construction jobs and operational jobs are the ones that matter. So when a politician stands up at the podium and announces that 8,000 new jobs in a data center, what you're hearing is a construction number, almost always. Operational number is in the planning documents on the council website. Anyone can pull them, the press rarely does. That's clue one, that something's off about how this conversation is happening. Let me give you clue two. Most people picture a data center like a big factory. High power use, sure, but steady. Same draw at 2 a.m. as at 2 p.m. A hum. A traditional cloud center is roughly like that. Web servers, database, email, they handle thousands of small independent jobs, smoothed across the day. Power use sits comfortably between 70 to 85% of capacity. An AI training cluster is not that. Here's what actually happens when a large AI model is being trained. You have thousands of high-end graphic cards, GPUs, wired together as a single machine. To train, they all execute the same instructions at the same instant. They start together, they checkpoint together, and they finish together. This is called synchronized load. It does something to the grid that the grid was not built for. Think of it this way. The Australian grid is designed for averaging across millions of households and businesses. A kettle here, an aircon there. The spikes cancel out, and the network sees a smooth aggregate load. That's the engineering assumption underneath your suburb. AI training breaks that averaging. When thousands of GPUs all switch from idle to full draw within the same second, then drop, then surge, load changes of tens to hundreds of megawatts per second, the local transformers, the substations, the poles, the wires, are seeing something they were never designed for. Synchronized step changes in demand, hour after hour, day after day. And here's the part that took me a minute to get my head around properly. To handle that, the grid has to be over-engineered. Heavier transformers, bigger substations, more resilient feeder lines. That costs real money. Billions of dollars of capital expenditure by people who run the poles and wires. Now, who pays for that? In the Australian electricity market, network operators recover their capital cost through regulated tariffs. Those tariffs sit in fixed cost positions on your power bill, not the usage part, the fixed daily charge, the bit you pay whether you turn the lights on or not. Without strict regulatory firewalls saying that hyperscalers pay for the hyperscalers upgrade, the cost of building a grid that can absorb gigawatts of synchronized AI training quietly gets socialized, spread across every household, every small business, every regional town that has nothing to do with AI training and never will. Now, I want to be careful here. This isn't a confirmed outcome. It's a risk that the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and energy market operators have been flagging, but the trajectory is real. The Australian energy market operator models data centres reaching 12% of the entire national electricity market by 2050. In New South Wales, the share goes from 4% today to 11% by 2030. Victoria, 2 to 8% over 5 years. That's not a steady ramp, that's a step change. The infrastructure to absorb it has to be built. Someone has to pay for it. And the question almost nobody in the Australian mainstream press is asking is whether that bill arrives in your letterbox quarterly or stays with the companies that needed the grid built that way. One more piece, then we'll get to what you can actually do. Earlier this year, Google quietly paused its $25 billion Australian data centre rollout. Not over water, not over power, but over tax. The Australian Taxation Office has taken the position that if you build a permanent multi-gigawatt physical facility in Australia, you have what's called a permanent establishment, which means a much wider slice of your regional earnings become liable for Australian corporate tax at the full rate, 30%. That's a lot of money, enough that Google's $20 billion in capital sat in limbo while the Treasurer and Google executives went back and forth. Here's the contradiction that matters. The Department of Defence wants these data centres built in Australia for AUKUS sovereign compute capability on Australian soil for classified workloads. Treasury wants the corporate tax. The same federal government is courting and penalising the same companies at the same time. And while we work that out, Malaysia, a region called Johor, just across the strait from Singapore, is offering advanced tax incentives that let hyperscalers skip the dispute entirely. They're building gigawatt scale capacity there right now. So we have a country pouring local water, local land, local grid capacity, and potentially local money via your power bill into hosting infrastructure that the federal government can barely tax. We're renting digital sovereignty, and we're trying to say that we own it. So here's what you can do. 1, pull out your next power bill when it comes. Look at the fixed network charge, sometimes called the daily supply charge. Write down that number. Then write down the equivalent number from a year ago, if you can find your old bill. Network charges are where the pass-through shows up if it shows up. It won't be dramatic in one quarter, but over the years, this is the line item to watch, not the usage, the fixed charge. 2, if you work in utilities, planning, energy, water, local council, ask one question this week. Who's modelling the cumulative load? When 3 data center applications land on a planner's desk in the same suburb, is anyone stress testing the combined draw? Or is each one being assessed in isolation, with the implicit assumption that the grid will somehow cope? In most state significant development pathways right now, the honest answer is nobody. There's a gap. If you're inside one of those organizations, you can be the person who raises it. 3, next time you see a data center announcement in your region, and you will, go find the state significant development documents on your state's planning portal. They're free, they're public. Search for the project name, scroll to the environmental impact statement, find the operational employment number, compare it to the construction number in the press release. The ratio will tell you almost everything you need to know about what this project actually is. None of this is an argument against data centers. Australia needs compute capacity. Sovereign infrastructure matters. AUKUS matters. The investment is real. The question is who pays the cost and who captures the value. Right now, the cost sits with local grid, local water, local network, local council, and possibly your power bill. The value is captured by the construction phase, the federal balance sheet, when the tax can be actually collected, and a handful of permanent operational staff. Working Australians are upstream of every cost and downstream of every benefit. Your job as someone working in this country isn't to stop the build. It's to make sure the conversation happens with the real numbers in view. All right, regulars. If you like this video, you like the information, Leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment as well. Let me know any topics that you guys would like me to kind of do a deep dive on for how AI is affecting Australians and businesses. And come back next week, pull up a seat, and we'll go over it.